Let's welcome to the stage three of the artists behind the scenes, Michael Altman, Nick Manfredi, and Brett Taggart to the stage, and we'll bring back Daniela as our moderator. So as I come up, I'll read their bios. Michael Altman's SVA thesis film won a student Emmy at the 36 College Television Awards. Most of his career in New York was at Hornet Animation as an animation tech director. He started at Disney Animation as a character technical director trainee and has worked on many projects with them, including Ralph Breaks the Internet and the soon-to-be-released Frozen 2. That's Michael Altman. Michael, raise your hand so we know who you are. There, that's Michael. Then to his right is Nick Manfredi, who's a pre-viz layout artist whose senior thesis film, Taking the Plunge, received critical acclaim and was awarded a Student Emmy Award and a Student Academy Award. He has worked at studios like Third Floor, Blue Sky, and Disney Animation, working on such films as Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, and of course, Ralph Breaks the Internet. He is currently working at DreamWorks on a new animated feature. Let's welcome Nick. And finally, Brett Taggart is a character TD at Walt Disney Animation Studios in Burbank. He's worked for various CG commercial shops, including Hornet and Aardman Nathan Love. And we have a lot of Aardman Nathan Love videos in the lobby if you want to check those out after. Like most kids, he grew up on Disney classics, his favorite being Aladdin, as well as everything from Studio Ghibli. Let's welcome Brett. And take it away, Daniela. And just so you know, we have some behind-the-scenes stuff I hear, so we'll throw those up in a few minutes. Go ahead.
So welcome back to SVA. So first, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your journey from SVA to Disney and how that went. Yeah, basically.
Sure. Yeah, so I graduated in class of 2015, computer art program. I basically just stayed in New York and just did the commercial house thing. Worked at Hornet and Army of Love as well as some others. Lots of McDonald's commercials and all sorts of random things. And then, eventually I just applied and got the call and moved to California. So here we are.
I graduated in 2014 from computer art. I did spend most of my time in New York to start off at Hornet Animation, also on a lot of McDonald's commercials. I applied to Disney a few times, and I interviewed twice and got in the second time. And Brett and I came out on for the same program for talent development. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I did a similar thing as these guys. I was in New York for about 2 years on commercials, and then I went out to LA first to work at Third Floor, which is where the Marvel stuff was, and then started at Disney as an apprentice. All three of us went through the apprenticeship program, which is where they bring you in and they teach you for about 9 months, I guess, of being an apprentice, and then you work on the film after you've trained. That was kind of all our journeys to get there.
So you guys experienced the commercial and now the feature, and you went from the East Coast to the West Coast. So can you describe a little bit about how that was? You can start, Brett.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was a different transition. You're used to working very short contracts when you're working in commercial work. It could be 2 weeks, could be a day, could be a month. So the work is always changing and it's always evolving. Versus feature film, you're working on one thing for a very long time and you're more of a small fish in a big pond, but you definitely get to have your work seen on a more global scale, which is really cool. So I think they both have their pros and cons. And then the transition, it's just life is sunnier in Los Angeles. I don't know.
And then even having, when you're like full-time at a commercial house, you still have very short production schedules because you're there all the time, but like it's just project after project after project, which is great when you get a lot of work done very quickly as opposed to feature when it's like, as Brett said, the one project all the way through.
Yeah, there was everybody in commercials and in feature. It's the same group of people just doing different things. But working on the feature side, it seemed like it's especially at Disney with this film, it felt like everybody was coming together, shooting at one collective goal to try to make something that you'll all enjoy. So we hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. I mean, no wonder it got nominated for an Academy Award. So can you talk a little bit about what you guys did on the film and maybe even talk about the footage that you brought, if we can pull that up?
Yeah, sure. Want to go first? Sure. If we have the footage, are we maybe gonna let the, oh, yeah. So I did previs/layout on the film, which is basically we're doing camera work and animation, and we're figuring out what all the shots are gonna look like before we have the final version of it. So I did the original basic animation and camera work and timing and figured out what it'll look like, and then it goes down the stream, it goes down to each department, and everybody pluses it and makes it better and better and better until you get the final film. So this is a side-by-side. The bottom is my stuff, and the top is the final film. So there's a few clips, but it's the Wi-Fi getting plugged in. I think the Spamly one was the first sequence that I worked on in the movie, but it was just so much fun to go through so many different iterations, and as the movie changes, the dialogue changes, the storyline changes, and that this is something in the previs/layout phase is where we're figuring out what the final film is going to look like and what it's going to be. And we go back and forth hand in hand with storyboarding and editorial. And they send us stuff and we fix it and send it back to them and try to make it look like as close to a final film as we can. And then animation gets it and makes it look amazing. There's my fake Ralphs running behind. Yeah, everybody pluses it. And then these guys do, well, I'll let you guys talk about it a little more, but they do hair and cloth simulation. So Vanellope's hair, what she's wearing, what Ralph's wearing, what his hair is doing, that's what these guys do. They up it, make it more beautiful, and every department does that until you see that final image up there. And the lighting department, of course.
So, Nick and Michael and Brett, could you talk a little bit about tech anim and what it is to be a character TD at Disney?
Sure. You want to start?
Our work on Ralph was doing technical animation or character effects. Basically what happens is an animator will animate a shot and get the character performance in, and then we'll take that animation and we will simulate the hair and clothing on top of it to make sure that it enhances the shot, the performance and the shot that you're seeing. It requires a lot of collaboration with animation sometimes to make sure that everything is simming properly and that we clean everything up to make sure that it looks pretty.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of manual handwork. Disney still, even though we're in 3D now as opposed to 2D, still has all the same principles of animation that they've always followed, their appeal and everything that they've always had. So we maintain all of that with the directors and our producers. Yeah, just sometimes it's frame by frame, sculpting clothing and hair to be exactly what we want it to be as opposed to what it wants to do out of the box. But yeah, no, it's a lot of cloth and hair, and yeah, it's
every frame of the movie. Yeah. These guys, they have, there's still traditional animators from the 90s of Disney that are with the team, and they draw over the characters, and they tell them exactly what will look like appealing shapes and characters' hair and these guys go through and painstakingly make it beautiful so that everybody.
Yeah, it's a high bar when the supervising animator of Lilo and Stitch takes your shot and draws over it exactly what he wants it to be, and you have to do it. So it's great. It's really rewarding once you just really nail it, and you just get that praise from the higher ups that they just love your work. So
nothing like getting a shot approved.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, the fun thing with what we do is we get to touch a lot of different characters across the film. So, it's not just Ralph and Vanellope. It's also, Felix and Calhoun and all the characters in the arcade. I got to work on Sonic the Hedgehog, which is a childhood favorite of mine. Also, Ariel and some of the Disney princesses were really cool to work on. You had some too.
I got Jasmine, and I also got a bunch of some shots of Shank. I tried really hard to try and get on a place called Slaughter Race. Because when that song was added, I was just like, I need to work on that.
So, yeah.
And he got them. Yeah. He got the shots.
So there you had to follow a lot of direction and everything. And when you were at SVA, you all worked on your own theses and you got to direct and do that. Can you share a little bit about your experiences with senior theses? As I'm a senior and I know there's a few seniors in here and we're going through that same process. Nick, if you want.
I I was lucky yesterday. We were lucky yesterday that we got to go do a talk at SVA with some of the students coming up, and I believe it was a junior class. And yeah, well, we were all lucky to do our thesis films in 2015. And the thesis film is a very rare experience where you get to make something that is your own passion project. It's something that comes from your heart and something that you want to tell. And that's a rare thing in life in general to get to, especially in this industry. If you are going to work on features, you get to work on some and be a small part of amazing things. But the senior thesis film, enjoy making that for any of you juniors out there, because that is a rare time that you get to make something that is truly yours and own it and have fun, enjoy it.
And remember to go home and sleep sometimes.
Remember to sleep.
Personal health.
Yeah, exactly.
So actually about that, like how do you feel like you can, at Disney, have a work and life balance, you know? Because at school we're constantly working and, you know, there's not much sleep involved. So how do you feel like the transition has been, you know, to a job, a stable job?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think probably, yeah, back to your earlier question about the biggest differences is you're going 110% full steam ahead all the time when you're in school, which is great because you're working really hard towards your dreams, but then there's life on the other side, and it's something that you don't experience until you're in it. You know, you have office hours, you're paid for your time, and they want you to go home and have hobbies and a life outside of work. So, yeah, it's hard to believe, but it's there. Yeah.
Family, dogs,
Yes.
you know, other things.
Sounds great.
There are other things.
There are
than
other
work.
things, really. So I just have a question. Like, what's next for you guys? Like, I know that Nick, you're not at Disney anymore. You're at DreamWorks. But like, where do you see yourself? Like, do you see yourself staying in feature or? Yeah, Michael, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so we had just wrapped up working on Frozen 2, so right now we are working on the studio, waiting for Raya the Last Dragon to ramp up. I myself right now am working on park rides, which has been a lot of fun, and hopefully Disney for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, yeah, just working on some project initiatives and getting ready and super excited for Raya and the Last Dragon, which was announced at D23. And yeah, no, I definitely just would like to see myself, climb the ranks, whether it's at Disney or elsewhere, and I definitely enjoy feature, so I think I'm going to try to stay with feature.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm at DreamWorks right now working on a new feature, and that I'll be working on that for a few more months, and then we'll see from there. I just am looking forward to. I really want to just keep working on films that affect people on some level and make them laugh, make them cry. Just as long as I get to keep doing that, I'll be happy.
So, what is the most exciting part of being in a production, in a feature film studio?
It's getting to work with all the amazing artists there and on some very just awesome characters that everyone gets to see.
Yeah, I mean, that is amazing too, just being inspired by everyone around you all the time. But just having these characters that are so beloved and just knowing that you had a small portion of it is just, it's really rewarding. And these characters live on forever. You know, Disney's reaches, with all the parks, and, it's really cool to see that, go through multiple generations, so.
Yeah, that's the hope, that the movies that we worked on will hopefully be around long after we're gone.
So before I give it to the audience, so I can give you guys a chance to ask a question, I just want to ask, do you have any funny or memorable stories that have happened to you during this production in particular?
I just remember watching a place called Slaughter Race for the first time, and it was like midway through production, I think, and they hadn't added the song yet. And we went in for a screening because they do crew updates, and they show you the film in storyboard form. And all of a sudden, Vanellope starts singing, and we were all just like, "My God, this is amazing!" Now we're working on a Disney musical. It changed the whole story. Yeah, so that was really, really fun. And then Mike got to actually work on that section of the movie.
Yeah, not a funny story, but just the absurdity of the Disney princess rescue sequence, because I came very late into the filming process, and it was really fun to work on just all of how they were able to incorporate every single, character and make them all part
Avengers.
of it. Princess Avengers. So, yeah, it was really fun to work on.
Mine was actually when I first started. Nick had already been at Disney for a year, and he was super excited to show us stuff he could not show people before. So the first thing that he did is that we went over to his cube, and he showed us the princess sequence when Vanellope shows up in the room, and I was just like, oh my God.
And Cinderella breaks a slipper.
Yeah.
Threatens her.
Well, thank you so much for coming and for sharing that with us. Now, if anyone has any questions.
I'll throw it right down here.
In the beginning of animation motion pictures, the cell was the memorable thing and the thing that the collectors really were after is those cells. What is the memorable thing now that translates with that kind of magic?
They still do recreations of the cells occasionally. So there's still, reproductions of them, but I would say probably the statues.
The maquettes.
The maquettes.
They make maquettes now that we don't really use in production, but they're crew maquettes. So they have, which maquettes, for anybody who doesn't know, is the sculptures that they used to use of characters in the 2D days, where they would sculpt them in 3 dimensions so that they could turn them around. So when they were drawing them, they would get the perspective correct. So that was what maquettes were used for. But yeah, now they'll make them for the crew, and you can order them. And I think all of us have Nick
Sometimes
and
there are some
Judy
left
from
over.
Zootopia. So yeah.
I think we had a question back here. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Okay. What encouraged you guys to make this amazing film?
Oh, we got into Disney, and they were like, we're making Ralph Breaks the Internet, and we were like, cool.
We were very encouraged.
Yeah. It's very inspiring to walk into Disney and just walk down the hall, and just the entranceway. They have a piece of artwork, one piece from every film they've ever made, just all over. So every time you walk in, you have to look around and be like, the legacy is following. So it's really cool.
Was it difficult to translate some of the 2D animated princesses into 3D models, or was it a lot of fun? Was it easy?
I would say yes. I definitely had some difficulties. I specifically, on one shot I'm thinking of is during the Disney Princess Rescue sequence where Ariel jumps in Moana's water and swims up of it. That was very difficult because we had some of the original people from Little Mermaid art directing all of the shape, language, and her hair. And 3D models and having things pre-made, sometimes the shapes that they want them to do, they don't physically do. So it's really interesting to try to hit all of that art direction, especially with the motion of her hair and how they wanted it to flow and wrap around as she twirled. So that was definitely a pain point, but I think it turned out pretty good.
But that's our job, and we also have a ton of resources. Like, these are all characters that Disney themselves made, so they have the original drawings of them, the turntables. So we have so much reference for when we're working on those characters also to try and bring it to 3D.
Yeah, we can go frame by frame through the old movies and watch how they handled hair and and just the animation of the character in general. So, yeah.
Hi guys. I'm going to assume for a lot of people that working for Disney is a dream, but growing up, was it a dream for you guys? Or was it just, just an opportunity to seize?
That's my best friend Phil, who I grew up with, and he has heard endless stories of my dream to work at Disney. So this movie, actually, I was thinking about it as I was watching it. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. When I was watching this movie, the whole thing is about Vanellope she's going after her dream, and it's about a friend supporting you in following your dream, whether you have to leave or not. And I'm sorry. I have a group of friends here and family who have supported me throughout. And sorry. Anyway, to see the finished film with everybody in this audience has been great. I've wanted to work at Disney since I was 4, so yeah.
Mine may not be as tearful, but I've always loved animation growing up, and I actually didn't realize it was a career until I was starting my first year of high school when it was like there was an animation class offered there, and I was kind of like, you can do that, like that's a job. And then I've tried to do as much as I can to like grow in that profession. I have wanted to work for Disney and feature, so yes.
Yeah, I have a similar experience to Mike. I just grew up loving all animation, not just Disney. There's plenty of other, Anastasia, Secret of Nim. There's so much great animation that I grew up with that I was just inspired by, and I didn't know how it was made, and I really wanted to try to see if I can get into that just because I was always drawing, and yeah, but Disney definitely is a dream come true, and there's more to come, hopefully, so.
How accurate is Slaughter Race's depiction of LA? And if not, what other reference material was used in building that world?
The smog is real.
Yeah. The freeways are also real.
Freeways are real. The exploding trucks.
No sharks.
Yeah.
No sharks.
No sharks.
There are clowns everywhere. It Chapter 2. Yeah.
Hi, I'm an MFA student taking a 3D modeling class, and I'm also an illustrator and cartoonist. What advice would you have for artists transitioning from 2D to 3D, or any aspiring artist?
Never stop drawing. Keep drawing, always. It informs everything we do, It just because it's not hand-drawn per se what the final product is on screen, it really is. Sometimes it's just as quick to grab a pen and paper and just scribble exactly what you want to do, and then you go through the headache of actually making it look like that. So I would say never stop drawing.
It's a huge part of the process. Sorry, go ahead. You go. Oh, I was going to say, it's the storyboard artists all they're doing is drawing all the time, and they're the ones who plan out the whole movie. And then we take it and transition it to 3D. Our departments do that. And then that's what the final film is. But if you look at the storyboard artists and then my layout and then the final film, it's all pretty close. So it makes it all the way down to the final film.
It's also the same thing for, we have a viz dev team that does the character designers and all of that. It all starts off on 2D drawings and it all gets translated into models later. So that's when you figure out all the shape language and what the character looks like from all angles. So keep drawing, what they said.
We wish we drew more. Wish we were able to draw more.
I can't really draw.
Two quick questions. You mentioned about having to draw the frames. How many frames are in a feature film like this? And the second part is, how long does it take to do a feature film from start to finish?
You can calculate it?
No. I'm not sure how many frames. It's 24 frames a second. In the film,
a lot of movie.
A lot of seconds in the movie.
A lot of seconds. There's a lot of seconds.
Oh yeah, 120 minutes. 100, maybe 93.
93 minutes.
Something like that.
So, I went to art school.
But to answer your other question, at least at Disney, the timeline is roughly about 3 years per film. So there's 3 years of production before one of these films even gets released. So from everything from starting early, from having the initial idea in the writer's room with the directors and the screenwriters, to going all the way through to concept and biz dev, trying to nail down the look of the film and how they stylistically want it to be. Storyboard artists taking all of that and basically boarding out the entire movie, and then the process continues on with Nick and every other department after. So.
Yeah, it depends on the film too. I think some of them can go, I've heard 4 or 5 years sometimes, even with pre-production. So with everything that we do is production, so everything that's in 3D and storyboard artists are part of production as well. But I think that everything in pre-production is basically the script writing, so it's the directors and the script writers figuring out what even we're going to be telling before they start transitioning to actually making the movie. So yeah, all in all, could be 3 to 5 years.
It's an iterative loop, you know.
And there's always more than one going out at a time. While one thing's in tech anim and other things in like pre-production. So there's like lots of stuff is always happening.
Hi, my friend and I are animation students at SVA. Do you have any advice for us? Just in general?
Can you raise your hand real quick? I'm just curious. Oh, there you are. Oh.
Take it away, Mike.
Just keep animating. I mean, it is a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun, and just keep at it.
So what I would say is enjoy what you're doing, because that time is short where you're getting to kind of workshop everything that you want to do yourself. Enjoy the people that you're around. Be friends with the people you're around. Be nice to everybody, because you are going to work with those people. They are going to be your coworkers. They're going to be your friends. These guys are an example of it. We've known each other 8, 9 years through SVA. We met. We've been friends that whole time. Then we all ended up at Disney together. We all live in Burbank together, and we go out and have dinner all the time. And like that's how the industry is. It's great because you kind of get this built-in family, you know, especially if you're with this industry, you have to move around quite a bit. So having people that you know, or you have friends who know friends, is just an amazing asset to have. So get to know everybody, be friendly, and enjoy your time.
Yeah, I would just say on top of that, keep your contacts strong. Networking is so important, especially starting out. You have to start from the ground up. So SVA is a great resource. You have half of the professors and staff. They're all working professionals. So a lot of them run studios right here in New York City. So just, like they said, making friends and just keeping that network strong and always updating your work, even if you don't feel like it's worth putting on. I mean, get a second opinion and throw it up there.
Always be ready to apply for a job. Second, have a reel ready for when a posting goes up, and don't wait to send it out. Just go for it.
Hi, I'm an animation freshman, and I really want to participate in a future animation movie in the future someday. And in the college, I don't have a 3D animation class. We only work on 2D animation, so I think I probably better learn some 3D skills by myself to be more versatile and to get a job in industry. So can you guys give me some advice on how to get my hands on 3D animation? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. Well, there are student versions of Maya, which you can go and sign up for online. I think on the Autodesk website.
Student site.
Yeah, say Adobe, but then it's on the Autodesk website. And you just go in, you put in your SVA email, and you just sign up for it, and you can download your own version of Maya, which is kind of the basic tool that every studio uses for 3D animation, including Disney. So yeah, and I'd play around in there, but keep doing the 2D stuff too, because it's always needed.
And if you're making an animation reel and applying for a 3D job, also put any 2D or other style of animation you have in there. Stop motion. There was a animation trainee this past year, Katie, who was a stop motion animator, and she came into the talent development program with that animation also. So all animation is good. It doesn't always have to be 3D.
Yeah, and there's plenty of tutorial websites out there as well that have great hands-on foundational things like DigiTutors, et cetera. If you're, I think that's a great starting point as well, as opposed to a class. Both are valid. Yeah.
I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Hey guys, so I'm sure you guys all love the role that you're in right now, but I'm just curious where your passion came from to do character TD or Previs, or if you had a different role in mind that you want to participate in.
I mean, I did not know I wanted to be a character TD when I went into this industry. The nice thing about our industry, at least in 3D animation, there's so many different roles. So I actually wanted to be an animator. So I went into school with that in mind, whether it was hand-drawn or 3D. I always knew I wanted to animate. I found out really quickly I was not good at animating. So you learn to adapt. And then I found out there were other things that I enjoyed just as much. I found that I love to contribute more under the hood in the background. So I definitely gravitated more towards rigging, which is the process of actually building the character skeletons that the animators use to move the models around, kind of like a puppeteer. So yeah, I really got into that. And yeah, inspiration, I guess just everything I grew up with pretty much, not just Disney, but yeah.
Yeah, so I also started wanting to be an animator, and a few years into school, my technical side started like taking over, so I got super into rigging and all of that. And rigging is like, it's part of the character 2D job, and then there's also the cloth and hair stuff, which we didn't really do much of until we started in the talent development program at Disney, where they would teach you how to do all of that stuff. So it's kind of like something we've like steered into when we started, and that's been a lot of fun too. So it's like it's all together.
I also wanted to be an animator when I started and I think it's because animator is the only term that we learn when it's animation related. Just the general population doesn't know about that. I definitely did not. So as the years went on at SVA, I started to realize, there's this thing where I can do camera work and like camera work in 3D, and that's really fun. Okay. Maybe I don't have to worry about the individual blinks of the character, but I can focus on like the shot across the board, So it's, even though I did love animation, and I think we all enjoy it to some level or another, we found things that suit us more and suit the way that we work better. And that's the really nice thing about animation, is it offers all these other jobs you didn't know existed until you're in it. So yeah. I think we all found where we were supposed to be.
Hello. So Wreck-It Ralph is like one of my favorite films. One of the fascinating things I find very interesting is the amount of collaboration that's involved in films like this when it comes to Sonic, or like for example, Sega, or Capcom, or Nintendo, or even having to do involvements with the likes of Twitter and Google. So I'm wondering what exactly, I'm curious at how they might have affected how you have to animate certain scenes, and like what direction they might give you for, when you're collaborating with these guys.
So I don't think we know much about how they collaborated with the companies. What I do know is that when the first promotional image for Ralph Breaks the Internet came out, you had like spoof companies of all the companies that ended up being in the film. You had like Amazon was amazing or something. And like after that image came out, all of a sudden we looked at the film and we saw all the actual companies in there. So I don't know how it happened, but someone did.
It was originally Google. So glad we got Google with actual German accent. Yeah.
I think the answer is the Disney legal team, because that's who works. They work with all of these different places and make sure that it seemed like throughout the process of making the film that they were trying to be respectful to the companies, and I'm sure that the companies had input on what like eBay looked like, or they at least got a look at it. I'm sure, that type of stuff. But,
well, I figured you would go through, like you were mentioning earlier, that you go through approvals. So I was wondering if like it goes back to them, and maybe they take a look at it and they ask, making little changes here and there. Maybe Google wanted a taller building. I don't know, like something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did affect, just depending on what shots you had and which characters you had. I mean, I'm not entirely sure about the specific feedback, but because I did mention I worked on a lot of Sonic shots, I definitely was in an iterative loop with my leadership about, I'm assuming they were talking to the folks at Sega to make sure it's exactly how they intended it, because I know that specifically his belly, they wanted it more round at one point, so I made it more round, then it was too round, so I had to make it less round. So there's definitely a loop, and there's definitely something happening above our heads, but especially when they want to accurately portray these characters, so because they're all beloved characters. So
we both worked on the Sonic section. Actually, I did previs on it, and then Brett did the final character tech anim. But I do remember at one point Sonic I don't think was in that scene, and then he was in it. Yeah. So I think they're always kind of waiting on approvals, and once they get it, then they're like, oh, that'll work well in the story here or there. Yeah.
That's why Wreck-It Ralph's such a fun film. Just a smorgasbord of everything. So, and then the internet just opened that up, Pandora's box. So,
just a quick side note, right here we have, she wrote down 133,920 frames in 93 minutes.
Boom.
So we've had a mathematician up front doing we've had someone
Thank
on
you.
the job.
All right, we have one final question in the back.
Hey, first of all, thank you so much for the amazing work that you have done. I would say myself, we really enjoyed it, and we enjoyed all the series of the movie. I would just like to ask you guys, do you have a space for creativity while doing this kind of work, or do you need just to follow a storyline where you get it from the production? And especially now, as we're seeing it's evolving into going into the internet, and definitely you as a technical guys have some intakes on that. Like, do you feel that there's a space for your own personal creativity in there, or like we would like to add this and add that, or do you feel like it's just a job where you need just to do and follow what's ever in the script? And that's the first part. The second part, do you think that there would be like more 70 futuristic stuff that it would be added in your career in the future as changing into that industry? Just asking. And again, thank you so much.
So I think we definitely get to do a lot of like creative input into the film. So like, I mean, we're brought in as artistic eyes. So especially for tech anim, it's like we will run a character and see how the cloth and hair perform on it, and we give it our own pass on it. We get drawovers and like anything they will take any input that will help make the film better. And then if they tell us that we're wrong, we fix it. And we take another crack at it and see how it goes. It's a very collaborative process, a lot of back and forth, but they give us the freedom to do what we want.
Yeah, I would just hearken to that as well. I feel like everybody had equal input, you know? I mean, just because we would get drawovers from these legacy animators, we would maybe attempt to do it, and then we would look at it, and then maybe it doesn't work in 3D, and then the artists themselves could do our own drawovers, and then we show it, and then maybe they'd be like, oh, that works better, and then your heart sinks a little bit, because an animator at Disney said that your thing is better than their thing, so which is crazy. So yeah, it's definitely a very collaborative process, and we also get a lot of FaceTime with the directors themselves. It's not so we definitely are meeting with them weekly, showing our work in every stage that it's in, and they give us feedback, and sometimes they ask how we think it, you know, if we have anything better. So I would definitely agree to that.
Yeah, and I'll second that. With the directors, we were really lucky that we have a lot of time with them, so we get to sit and say, what if we did this? And in layout phase, we're just looking at the storyboards and seeing how we're going to translate it. And a lot of times it'll be like, oh, well, that worked really well in the boards, but it doesn't really work now in the space that we have. And like, you want to see more of the back of eBay. So we're going to now turn the camera around and go over this way so that you can see over there, and that's the front entrance. And there's things like that that's just, like I was saying earlier, we're all trying to plus the movie and make it better in each department if we can. So they definitely listen to those things, and there were a few things that you get to add that are just fun things. Like I worked on this sequence with Felix and Calhoun where they adopt the kids, they adopt the racers, and there was an audio cue. There was screaming and like a break in the background. And then I decided to throw a Rubik's Cube at the wall when they came running out. They come running out of the kitchen. And so they come running out of the kitchen, and then in the final film, you know, the Rubik's Cube breaks over their head and they duck. And that was because I added that like early on, and then it just made it all the way through the movie because they liked that little beat. But that's just one little thing of, you know. And then on top of that, they also have employee screenings, and they ask us for feedback. They say, what do you think of the film? What do you think of the characters? Who is your favorite character? You know, stuff like that. And that, I think, is what makes Disney's films so strong, is that they actually listen to their audience, which happens to be their employees. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this and for helping us. And after we're going to move to the lobby, and if anyone has more questions, you can ask our guests. But yeah, if we can just move into the lobby. Yeah, thank you so much.
Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, Nick, Michael and Brett. Thank you, Daniela, for being a
Thanks,
terrific
guys.
moderator.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
also want to thank the chair of the BFA Computer Art, Computer Animation, and Visual Effects program, Jimmy Calhoun, for helping us put this together. He is here, so if you're an aspiring student, feel free to talk to him in the lobby. And check out the rest of the films during the festival. If you're family and have kids, Spider-Man tomorrow, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse tomorrow at 3. And thanks so much. Put your 3D glasses in the baskets and have a good day.